What is going on, guys? I'm FlynnMasters, and today I'll be going over, in my opinion, the top 10 best chefs in Hell's Kitchen history. So yeah, of course, last week I did the top 10 worst chefs, and this week I'll be doing the top 10 best. And again, like similar to my worst chefs video, it's not like a winner ranking where I take things outside of the chef's control when I'm doing my rankings. Like, this is strictly, in my opinion, the 10 best chefs in Hell's Kitchen history out of all the 300 plus to go on. So let's once again begin with a ton of honorable mentions here, going in order of the seasons, starting with the first ever winner in Michael Ray. And despite being a genius, I think a lot of people also forget just how great he was this season as well, and of course invented the sabotage. I'm just not as confident in him as I am certain other old school chefs when it comes to how they would do on any given season. Speaking of old school chefs, I really consider this person, and that is Rock. Again, he and another certain old school winner are very low in my winner rankings, but as overall chefs, are absolutely capable in my opinion. And I honestly just feel Rock is not quite on the level of the top 10, but he would absolutely be my top 15. A pair I absolutely also strongly consider as well are both Paula and Danny from season 5. I mean, there's a reason why they're considered the best final two in the show's history. Absolutely dominated season where Ramsay was at his most brutal. And like, if it was just comparing chefs, who only competed on one season, their original season, they would absolutely be considered even more. But as unfair as it may be, there are some two-time chefs who kind of knocked them down a bit. And so because of that, just not quite top tier for me. I feel bad leaving this person off the list, and that is Kevin, especially since the person he lost to is very high on my top 10 list. And like, I feel ruthless saying this, but while what he did in Hell's Kitchen on one foot is absolutely incredible, I think most can agree limping in the kitchen isn't as impactful as a certain other injury from that season. Again, I feel awful saying that, but and not only that, but of course his comeback really hurt being an early boot on Rookies versus Veterans. So yeah, I can absolutely see the argument for Kevin being a top 10er without even questioning it. But he's just simply not it for me. We got the GOAT for a lot of people in Christina Wilson, but at the same time, a lot of people think she's overrated. I'm sort of in the middle in that I'm always shocked when people think she's like a bottom tier winner, especially given how she absolutely controlled that bonkers red team. But at the same time, she did make a little too many mistakes, in my opinion, to be considered top tier status. I know a lot of people consider Latasha a top 10 chef. For me, she's similar to Rock in that she's most definitely a top 15er, just simply not quite top 10 worthy. And again, that's mostly due to a lot of the other chefs on this list having a great second outing. However, on the opposite end of that spectrum, this chef most certainly would have been in the top 10 with a good second season performance, or had they never came back at all. And that is, of course, T, who came back for Rookies versus Veterans and did very badly. I mean, it's not like she was absolutely dreadful or anything. It was mostly just like one really bad service. And again, like I said, had she even done, top 10, top 8 even this season, I think she probably would have been in my top 10, but I just cannot overlook her awful performance here in Rookies versus Veterans. We got another two-time chef to talk about now in Heather, who on paper has an extremely solid case for being an all-timer, given her resume of a second-place finish and black jacket. However, I think most would agree she's not exactly a top-tier runner-up in the show's history, and got pretty lucky to even get a black jacket in Rookies versus Veterans. So despite the stats looking great, I didn't consider her. Speaking of two-time chefs and a good resume, Millie also has an amazing resume with 2 fourth-place finishes on 2 very talented seasons, but we all know his problem. The poor guy just cannot turn it on when it matters the most. But definitely probably another person who would be in my top 15. And when it comes to the general New Era seasons, while of course the talent is insane, I actually only chose 2 people in my top 10, even though others could consider the likes of Declan, Mary Lou, Corey, Trenton, Megan, Cheyenne, Jonathan, Hannah, and Kyle. To me, I feel the top 10 was pretty solidified at this point. Despite all of them, I could most certainly see the argument for being top tier chefs in the show's history. But with all those honorable mentions out of the way, we're now on to the official top 10 now, and at number 10 is the winner of Battle of the Ages, Alex Ballou. And, I've said this before about Alex, and I'll say it about a lot of other chefs in this top tier. He truly is the all-around package. He was dominant as a line cook, of course, definitely capable as a leader. And I think the biggest thing in his favor compared to all the other all-time great chefs is the guy had to go through 4 elimination challenges. Some of the other honorable mentions, or even some other people in the top 10, didn't have to deal with 1 elimination challenge. And he came up clutch in all of them. Again, it's something no other winners had to deal with, much less most chefs in Hell's Kitchen history. He dominated an extremely talented season, and if he can do this all as a 40-year-old, imagine what he could do in his 20s or 30s calories like most other top tier chefs on the list. So yeah, as a winner, he's actually around this spot as well. But again, when comparing these top tier chefs as overall chefs, Alex just does so much right. And that's why he's able to sneak his way into my top 10. At number 9 will for sure be my most controversial pick on the list, with that being the controversial Michelle. And I know, I can just see the comments now. And of course, if we're just comparing either season 14 or All-Stars run, yeah, she wouldn't be anywhere close to the list. But like, she is tied with another person on this list for the best resume in Hell's Kitchen history. A 3rd place finish in season 14, and of course won All-Stars. And yeah, I know she got lucky to win All-Stars, but let's just say she got 3rd place on both seasons. That's still an insane resume to have, considering the talent of both those seasons, and that she was the youngest chef in each season. And I know some people just also say she was flat out overrated in general. I don't see that at all. Like, maybe overshadowed a bit in season 14, of course, but I think definitely deserved her 3rd place finish. And while she had a bit more hiccups in All-Stars here and there, again, I feel she was at least deserving a 3rd place finish. Not to mention she had to go through that season with Hell's Kitchen's biggest douchebag against her for half of it. So again, Michelle had her mistakes, not a standout leader by any means, probably shouldn't be a winner. But for God's sakes, people, she's still a great chef, and for my money, a top tier one at that. A top 10 one, landing here at number 9. At number 8 is definitely another chef who benefited greatly from a second chance, with that being Benjamin. And the resume speaks for itself. 3rd place and 2nd place finish, like that alone would put him in at least consideration. But let's not overlook his actual performance. I mean, he was essentially perfect throughout his entire Hell's Kitchen run, other than his time on the red team in season 7. And I guess he had a bad Service 3 and All-Stars, but like, other than that, he is the absolute definition of a solid chef. But again, with that said, you cannot overlook the fact that he just completely and utterly failed to lead the red team in any sort of way in season 7, which that alone I could see people not believing he's a top 10 chef. And in general, he's certainly not on the levels of other chefs leadership-wise on this list, or for that matter, other chefs in Hell's Kitchen history who I didn't even have as honorable mentions. But again, as unfair as it may be, the resume speaks for itself, with his All-Stars run especially being a standout, in that this old school 40-year-old chef just did his thing despite all the craziness this season, and stood out for when all intents and purposes, he could have easily been an early old school boot a la Giovanni or Van. So while this was tough, in the end, I do think Benjamin is a top 10 chef in Hell's Kitchen history. At number 7 is basically Benjamin on steroids when it comes to benefiting from a second chance, with that being Nick. And I mean, what else needs to be said? The guy dominated an All-Star season and is the true season's winner. And obviously the season 14 run was damn good too, even if it did start out pretty badly. I think a lot of people forget how bad his third service was and how much danger he could have possibly been in had Michael not been a complete donkey. And him surviving over Brendan was essentially a 50-50 chance. But again, his run at All-Stars was a top 5 single-season performance in the show's history. And when you have a Black Jacket run to boot in one of Hell's Kitchen's most talented seasons, I can't imagine Nick being in my top 10 is as controversial as maybe Benjamin or Michelle. At number 6 is the winner of Season 2 in Heather. And again, this is the difference between a winner ranking and a flat-out chef ranking. As when comparing winners, I have Heather so low because she just didn't have much competition ahead of her. But like I said in those winner rankings, I see no reason why she couldn't dominate any season of Hell's Kitchen, especially when you look at her performance this season. I mean, she was an absolute dominant line cook and leader on both the red and blue kitchen, giving some all-time great performances like at the Final Four, leading her team with a burnt hand. Again, when you combined her being one of the best leaders ever, her talent in the kitchen, and especially her insane drive and passion, Heather is truly everything you could possibly want from a Hell's Kitchen chef. And I'm so glad to finally give her dues, and that's why she lands here at number 6. At number 5 is a chef with another amazing resume, with that being Ariel Fox. And again, a 3rd place finish in season 6 and the winner of season 18. You know, you can't get much better than that. In my opinion, she just simply did the best in her 2-season run compared to some of the other 2-time chefs we talked about. Like, yeah, she faded a bit towards the end of season 6, but she was flat out dominant during most of her run on that red team, during, again, a time where Ramsay was at his most craziest in Hell's Kitchen. And, like, she made one mistake essentially all of season 18, one of the most dominant wins of all time on a very talented season. Maybe the only downside is that she's definitely not the most standout leader in the world, especially compared to the top 4. But overall, I mean, her 2-season run, you know, speaks for itself. Ariel is a top 5 chef in the show's history, in my opinion. At number 4 is the greatest chef to never win Hell's Kitchen, with that being the runner-up of season 9, Will. And I mean, he's flat out the best line cook in the show's history, not making one mistake all season, was a great challenge cook, and was similar to the number one chef we'll talk about in that he was essentially another sous chef in the Blue Kitchen for all intents and purposes, always leading the team and taking over at times when need be. Now, obviously, his big negative is the finale service. While not all-time bad, I mean, it's definitely a bottom 10 performance. So had he won this season, he almost certainly would have been number 2, maybe even battling for number 1. But that finale performance drops him down to number 4, but still obviously an all-time great. The top 3 now are all winners, and it's just a matter of ordering them, with number 3 being the winner of the American Dream, Ryan O'Sullivan. I mean, Ryan is just what you picture when you think about the perfect chef. I mean, he's a dominant leader, one of the best leaders in the history of the show, made essentially no service or dinner mistakes all season, and won the most talented season ever. Now, like, the only minor negative is that, yeah, he was overshadowed a bit this season by the likes of Jonathan and Demir. And I guess he didn't stand out in the Black Jacket Challenge, but, I mean, even then, like, he did so well in that challenge. Ramsay gave him that 6th Black Jacket. But, like, these are some serious, and I mean serious nitpicks here. Ryan is a top-tier chef in the show's history, landing here at number 3. At number 2 is the number 2 chef on my winner rankings, to which some people may disagree with, but again, I simply do not care. At number 2 is the winner of Season 6, the legendary one-armed bandit Dave Levy. And yeah, he's arguably one of the worst challenge performers in Hell's Kitchen history. He certainly wasn't a top-tier leader, but it honestly just doesn't matter to me. For this man to do what he did in Hell's Kitchen with one arm is borderline insane. Again, something literally out of a movie. I mean, like that Final 9 service and Final 4 service especially, where he's absolutely killing it with one arm, taking over for chefs like Andy when they're struggling. Like, of course he wouldn't be anywhere close to the top 10 on stats alone, but he's a reality TV show legend for a reason, and his one-arm bandit performance is something that I just simply don't know if other top-tier chefs on this list could truly do. You know, Dave Levy did the unthinkable. That's all I can really judge it off of, and so because of that, he lands here at number 2. But at number 1, the very obvious best chef in Hell's Kitchen history is the winner of Season 14, Megan. And again, I won't beat the dead horse too much here, but it's not that she was just a dominant winner, but she almost felt too good for the show in a way. Like, she essentially took over Andy's role as sous chef in the Red Kitchen, and frankly, nobody could stop her with how much of a natural-born leader she was. Again, one mistake all season, and that came during a time where she was just absolutely packed to the gills with meat orders. A top 5 leader and best female leader in the show's history. The easy pick for the Hell's Kitchen GOAT. So there you have it, guys. My official picks after years of covering this show for the top 10 best chefs in Hell's Kitchen history. Let me know what your top 10 list would be in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe and like button as we approach 100K subscribers. And with all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.